strategy analyst. Very excited to have you. Hey, Gary.
Hey, how's it going? Happy to be here.
Yeah, pumped, man. Obviously we get to work together pretty closely. You're here very frequently, but for the listeners that don't know, if you wouldn't mind just kind of catch us up to speed on your background and what you're doing now at Google.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, great to be here. You guys have such a vibrant office here. It's great to always come in. I'm usually here every Tuesday, and my role with you guys is really helping work with your clients, help grow your clients, grow their customer base, and it's something I've been doing since I moved to LA in January. I've been working at Google for about 2 years. So over the last kind of 9 months, it's been in this role supporting agencies and their clients like yourself and a few others in LA as well. But over the last 2 years, what it really is about is growing businesses through marketing. And that's what I've done at Google, is what I've done previously as well, working for a startup, really growing a company from the ground up. So growth of businesses is really what excites me, and it's something that I'm excited to be able to do that at Google with great products and working with great agencies like yourself.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons we wanted to have you on, right? Just because the whole theme of Live from the Nest is how to develop and grow brands, right? And obviously, you get to do that all the time.
Yeah.
One of the things I always look forward to is whenever we sign a new account on Google, it's always an exciting thing because we have such a collaborative environment that it's like, we get to bring them on board, you guys get to bring them on board, you help us make sure that everything's set up, you kind of get to look underneath the hood and make some recommendations. And that's been really exciting in 2019 is having you as a partner and having you on those accounts. As you've seen things develop and things change, both in and outside of Google, what are some trends that you're most excited about that you've seen happen so far in 2019?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. When we bring a client on, it's really both of our clients will work together to really kind of help drive their growth. And I think, something that we've spoken about before actually is helping companies really understand how their marketing drives kind of their full business, right? So I think, over the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen this big growth of digital media companies like Google, like Facebook, other companies as well, where now it's very easy to measure kind of the immediate impact of marketing.
Yeah.
I put $1 in now, like how many dollars am I getting out tomorrow?
Yep.
Right. So I think that has definitely been a positive thing, but what that also sometimes does is it allows businesses to say, hey, that's only what we're focusing on as opposed to the bigger picture. Right. So I think when you just focus on kind of dollars in, dollars out immediately, you might lose track of the bigger picture, things like how do you introduce a user to a brand in the first place, right? Like we work with tons of different brands, they have tons of different products that their customers can be highly varied. And sometimes when a customer is being introduced to a brand for the first time, or a lot of the time, they're not taking an immediate action that has value for a business.
Yeah.
It might be kind of down the line. It could be in a week, it could be 6 months, it could be 2 years, right? So I think it's been exciting to kind of work with you guys to really try and focus on business outcomes and business metrics as opposed to just media metrics, and then working towards building a strategy that caters towards those business metrics and business outcomes. So I think that's something that I've seen has been a really exciting progression. We've had a big focus on this at Google.
Yeah.
And it's also just something that I see that the smarter brands get, the smarter they are about thinking about kind of the full marketing sales funnel.
Yeah.
So I think that's been an exciting trend. I think something also that I'm really excited about is digital video. So I think 2019 is going to be the first year that actually viewership of digital video outpaces viewership of TV. And so that's a really powerful, big thing.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we think about digital video, we have a lot of different platforms. You obviously have like your YouTube, your Facebook, and all these other different video platforms as well. But I think when you think about how do you create a message that really vibes with your customers, and how do you get someone really interested in a brand, oftentimes it is video.
Yeah.
And there's so much opportunity to customize video, make it catered towards like specific demographics, specific age ranges. Really making that as customizable as possible. So I think those are two trends that I think are really exciting, really focusing on business metrics, business outcomes. How do we create strategies around that aren't necessarily just looking at what is that lost interaction, but how do we actually drive a business forward, and then just to see the popularity of digital video, how different brands utilize it, and all the different creative strategies that you can use to really make your brand unique and reach new customers.
No, absolutely. And luckily we had a little chat before this talking about that, but that's definitely what I'm most excited about too. I've been on calls for a long time now where the only thing they want to know is what's the return on ad spend, right? And it's not necessarily a good thing for a brand. Imagine if the first time you saw a shoe and the first thing you saw was here's 20% off your shoe, right? Like that's the first thing you saw.
Yeah.
That's not really going to make you like the company, right? That's not going to make you be like, wow, that's a really cool company. I would consider buying that. You're probably just going to scroll over, you see a sales, promotion, and you skim over it. And then the other thing that also a lot of brands really underestimate is the selling cycle, right? If you have a product that has any sort of cost, right? $50 or more, $100 or more, people typically don't just buy that the first time they see it. So they roll out a new product or roll out a new ad or a new ad unit or a promotion, and they expect it to move right away. People are educated buyers now, right? So they want to be nurtured, they want to be trained, they want to be taught, they want to be educated, they want to be entertained, which just goes right into the video thing, right?
Yeah.
But some of the coolest brands out there are the ones that aren't always doing promotions. They're doing collaborations and they're doing entertainment type media as opposed to direct response media. And so I definitely agree with you in the way that direct response has a time and place, and we're obviously really good at it. But some brand forward marketing is going to add ammunition to that marketing mix a lot more effectively than just doing direct response.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best brands, they really develop an emotional connection with their customers,
Yes.
and they do it in a lot of different ways. And to your point, right? Like it's not that if you pay for an advertisement now that you're going to get a customer within 24 hours. That's oftentimes not how it works. Obviously, a lot of different types of businesses out there that use a lot of different types of marketing, a lot of different sales cycles. But if you're just focusing on that kind of the lowest bottom part of the funnel, where it's just dollars in, dollars out immediately, then you're going to miss things like how do you actually grow your overall user base, right? Like how do you go out and acquire new customers, new users? How do you find people and reach people that maybe you haven't reached before?
Yeah.
So I think we're having a good discussion about this. It's direct response is great. It's marketing can oftentimes be very tough to measure. So it's good when we're able to bring measurement metrics to be able to measure the impact of some of the work we do. And some of the direct response stuff, or a lot of it, does have a huge impact, right? You can really use it as a lever to drive brand success, but you can't forget about, how do you actually bring people to that point in the funnel in the first place, right? Because companies will die if that's all that they do. I think most companies, I think, 90% of companies die within 10, 15 years. So you really have to be thinking about how you're constantly going out and reaching a new audience, and you have to think broader than just, that lowest part of the funnel and, immediate kind of, output you get from your marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It's an exciting time to be in the industry, right? And as we look, right, there's so much fun stuff happening right now. With the holidays around the corner, it feels like the end of the year is going to happen before we know it. What about some things that you're excited going into 2020, whether it be on the Google Suite or the YouTube Suite or elsewhere?
Yeah, I think a lot of different things. I think one thing that is really interesting to me is helping businesses understand how does online really influence offline. So, we both work with a lot of e-commerce companies, right? And there are a lot of companies that transact both online and offline. They might have stores, but when we think about the e-commerce space in the US, it's a many $trillion market. Less than 15% of retail is actually done online, right? So a lot of businesses, their online digital marketing spends, they only evaluate it in terms of what does it bring digitally? How much is someone purchasing online? How many leads did I fill out online, right? But, I think intuitively what we both probably experience is when you go to a store, you go buy something, oftentimes you're searching and kind of reading about what it is beforehand, or watching a video, learning about different products. You're trying to figure out where you want to go before you even go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And then when you get to a point where maybe you feel like, okay, I really like this product, I like this brand, it's like, okay, well, do they have it in store, right? Is it local? Maybe at that point, you're still able to switch between brands, right? You say, okay, I like that brand, but this one's local, this one's in store, this one's easy access. So I think, when businesses try and evaluate the digital media spend, a lot of them don't really understand, how online interacts with offline. So I think what I expect to see is smarter brands being able to bridge this gap more effectively. And, Google's helping out with, different ad formats that enable people to be in front of customers, when they're going out and trying to find a store, whether they're searching for things like Near Me, which we see, huge growth in the amount of searches.
I use that every day.
Yeah, so exactly. So I think that's kind of a piece of the pie that's kind of misunderstood or not fully evaluated. And I think there's a huge opportunity for brands to really connect the two. I think, we spoke a little bit about video, right? So I said in 2019, we expect digital video viewership to surpass, video viewership.
Yeah.
I think in terms of what that's going to lead to in 2020 is, convergence of digital video spend, marketing dollars going to digital video and TV spend.
Yeah.
Historically, TV spend, big brands, they're like, well, I can't be a brand if I don't spend on TV, right?
Yeah.
And we know that TV is effective, and I'm sure we can all think of, videos that we've seen on TV that, we remember and then have influenced us purchasing something.
Yeah.
But, how can we, then use the same strategies or expand our strategies on TV to maybe reach more people through digital video, right?
Yeah.
TV's audience tends to skew a little older. Digital video, people are going after millennials or younger people. You really need to be able to use multi-platforms to be able to reach these people. So I think as viewership converges and increases on digital video side, we're going to see marketing spending dollars go behind that as well. And when I think about exciting marketing and marketing that really creates emotional connection, I think of video, and I think of really cool things or funny tidbits that like help me remember a brand. Right?
Yeah.
Like what's the brand recall? So I think those are two things, and I think what we're also going to see is a continuation of some of the trends that we have been seeing as well. Things like the importance of mobile, right? You always need to be where your customers are. We know, especially in the US, like everyone's got a mobile phone and they expect their mobile phone to be, their little computer that's going to help them with everything immediately. So I think, for brands, they need to be in front of their customers and they need to be able to allow them to use their products quickly and easily. So for businesses, that means really thinking about things like the speed of your mobile site, your e-commerce conversion rate. If your mobile site is taking more than 5 seconds to load, you lose about 60% of customers.
Yep.
And I think another kind of continuation that we're going to see in 2020 and maybe acceleration too is the use of artificial intelligence in marketing. All right, so I think we had a good little discussion about you guys really leaning into artificial intelligence to really augment the efforts that you're already doing. And we see this on a macro scale that using artificial intelligence to analyze data better, to kind of bid better, can really improve efficiency of marketing, but it's also about the combination of human intelligence and artificial intelligence, right? You can tell a system to go after like a cost per acquisition target, but what should that be? What should it be in terms of acquiring new users? How do you think through the full funnel, like influencing brand awareness where someone might not convert immediately, right? So we need to lean into artificial intelligence. It's going to become more important to drive business outcomes, but also combining that with human intelligence to drive the most amount of results.
Absolutely. It's so funny, right? Because the answer for both of us is kind of the same. And the things that we're most excited for is that things are moving so quickly on the artificial intelligence side, and they're getting smarter and making our jobs a lot easier. But the other thing that I'm most excited for is that things are going backwards a little bit, right? And there's like mixed media campaigns, and people aren't so direct response focused. They're more thinking about brand awareness and brand affinity. How can they get people to buy in, right? And one of the things I'm excited to see even more of, right, which has been a big part of branding forever and marketing forever, but really excited to see the way like mixed media and influencers kind of combined, right? Right now, when you talk to a brand about influencer marketing, they think of, I pay you, you post this, right? It's very transactional. I think that there's a way, and you've seen it before, right? Whether it be on like Entourage or through like athletes on Beats by Dre, but like doing more integrated influencer stuff, where it's like product placement and mixed media, like, okay, this person has a great YouTube channel, and in that they're going to use my product, and it's going to be very organic, it's not going to be very transactional, and that's how you build that brand affinity, right? Because someone's already watching that channel, someone already likes that person, now they're just integrating that product into their life, and that's how you get that brand affinity, where people are like, oh wow, that brand's really cool, I should check them out, or I should follow them on social, or I should get on their email list, or I should visit their store, and all these different things. So it's really exciting, and I'm pumped for those types of campaigns to become more prevalent, because the brands that do that typically win, right? Those are the ones that are thinking outside the box.
Yeah, I think it gets back to like building this emotional connection with customers, and I think we were speaking about this a little before too. It's it's great when influencers, they obviously have a lot of people that they can reach, but you can't just say, hey, like do this post and it's going to work out, right? Like
exactly.
Maybe they can reach a lot of people, but is it authentic? Is it genuine? Is it something that really connects with the users? Does it seem like an obvious product placement, or does it seem like something that they're genuinely interested in? How are we thinking about the creative side of things? What's the story that's being told? How does that identify with the audience? Is it in a way that's, is it funny? Is it memorable? There are all these things that are important in terms of the creative input to things, especially on the influencer side. Like we know influencer marketing can work, but it doesn't always work, right? You can't just throw some dollars behind some posts and expect to kind of grow your customer base. You have to really think about what is your strategy, and what is your strategy for different demographics, different geographical areas. You have a different strategy for different places in America, right? Maybe you got a brand who's running national campaigns, but they should have very targeted messages and influencer strategies depending on where they're kind of showing their advertising. So I think, it's, as you said before, it's like we're kind of working together on the same things, and it's using Google's platforms and other platforms, and using your expertise and what you guys have learned working with thousands of brands. I think it's something that we both get an opportunity to do, is work with a lot of different brands across a lot of different industries. So we can really learn like what works well, what doesn't. And I think that's where a lot of our expertise really helps some of these businesses, where they're oftentimes siloed in terms of their own business tactics and their strategies. So what we can do is really help leverage the information and the learnings that we have from all the brands that we work with to help guide them in a strategy and make that influencer for strategy, for example, much more intelligent.
Yeah, I've been on those internal teams, right, where they're really smart people and they're using tactics that they did before, right? Like, oh, we tried this in my last company, it worked really well. Awesome. The thing is that might not work right now, right? And so we're very fortunate that we've got 170-ish people at the office right now. We work with a lot of brands, and everybody's really hyper specialized. So we're able to say, hey, we saw this work with this brand. Maybe that might work with this similar brand or someone totally different, but of the same price range or demographic. And so when you're working with a company like Hawk or Google, a rising tide elevates all ships, right? So you kind of get to learn from one another. So it's a really exciting thing. It's amazing because every time I meet with you, I find out about some new incredible thing that Google's doing, right? Whether it be maps, right? There's so much there. Every time I pull up Google Maps, there's like something different in there that's making my life even easier. Yeah. Or it knows where I'm going, or it's making a recommendation, or I need to stop somewhere. Whether it be an ad unit or a platform on the Google platform, what are some of the things you're most excited about?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned maps, right? Because I think when we think about Google's products, what Google does really well is they first build products that are really useful and helpful, right? So, think about how helpful things like maps are, like search, like YouTube, Gmail, Drive. These are all things that, certainly for me, like if I didn't have them in my life would be a lot harder. Yeah. And that's really like stepping outside of marketing and advertising. That's always been Google's motto: organize the world's information, make it more helpful for people. So I think Maps is a great example of a product that has been super helpful for a lot of people for a long time, but for businesses in terms of marketing dollars, it hasn't been really a great option for them to utilize. But I think that's changing. I think I spoke a little bit about like connecting online and offline. And 2019, we see the first kind of usage of some ad units on Google Maps that drive people to stores. When you're searching for stores near me, how do you better understand the options that you have? And anytime there's an option to enable customers to make better decisions about where they want to go, there's an opportunity for brands to get in front of those people at the right moment. Yeah. So I think that's certainly one thing I'm really excited about. I think YouTube as a whole is something I'm really excited about as well. Yeah. Me too. It's especially thinking about the direct response nature, right? So sometimes, like as we spoke about before, when you just focus on direct response, you lose some of the bigger picture in terms of the impact of something, right? Search, people invest in search and they expect returns immediately, and oftentimes they get it, right? Yeah. And so, sometimes when they invest in YouTube, they expect, the exact same results. Yeah. But when you think about how maybe you use YouTube or I use YouTube, you come to YouTube to watch a certain video, maybe you see an ad, maybe you connect with it, it's memorable, it's funny, but you still came to YouTube to watch the video you went to see, right? Yeah. So you continue to watch that video, and maybe at a later point you're like, oh, I remember that ad, and then you go on their website, right? So that sort of thing is it's difficult to like track and understand the impact of that.
Yeah.
But you know, it's something that I think more brands, once they figure out like how it really does influence their overall business, I think they'll really utilize it much more. So I think YouTube is something I think is a lot of brands they don't use it as much as they should.
Yeah.
Like, realistically, you know, it's behind Google's second most traffic website in the world. You know, I think a third of people in the US use YouTube every single day.
Yeah.
And people use it for all different sorts of things, a lot of educational content. So, you know, how can YouTube become a greater part of brands' strategies and connecting with consumers? That's something I'm excited to see, and I think we can expect to see Google roll out more products that also help on the direct response side and other stuff. And I think other thing I'm excited about too is just, you know, we've spoken a lot about, you know, we have all these different ways that we can influence kind of outcomes through marketing.
Yeah.
And attribution is something that is always a challenge, right?
Absolutely.
Because with the rise of the internet and tech giants, you know, things are more easily measurable, but there's still a lot of challenges in terms of attribution. So understanding what is like the path to conversion, right? Oftentimes we see data on it takes over 10 digital touch points before someone makes a purchasing decision.
Yeah.
Right, and I think it creates a challenge for businesses, it creates a challenges for agencies and kind of everyone involved, the whole attribution thing. How do we understand actually the impact of a certain ad unit or marketing dollars? And I think I'm excited. I expect Google to make it easier to even understand their own products. Like how does, you know, watching YouTube videos interact with like people searching, you know?
Yeah.
Intuitively, we know that, you know, you watch a video and oftentimes people search after that, and we have a lot of data on that, but it's not necessarily easy to always see that interaction and that path to conversion.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, I'm certainly excited for like how can we better help, you know, businesses, agencies understand attribution and the impact of their marketing dollars.
Yeah.
So I think that those are a couple things in terms of kind of products and how they're being utilized that I'm excited for.
Yeah, I know for me, specifically, whenever we onboard a new account and I know that our Google team is on it, I get excited because I know they're going to be here for a long time, right? We're month to month, we're all a card, you pick and choose what you need, but at the end of the day, we want you to be here for as long as possible because that means we're working for you, and that happens often, but whenever it's Google, I'm always like, oh, nice, we're good. We're set, right? Because there's like a Google solution for everything. So you want to do, you know, direct response, obviously there's pay-per-click and basically the entire Google suite, but then you want to do, you know, brand awareness campaigns, you can do that through YouTube. You want to get foot traffic, you can do it through Maps.
Yeah.
There's all these different types of campaigns, and playing around with that suite has been something that's really, really helped the performance of the brands that we work with because it supplements everything else that we do, whether it be, you know, helping update your website or helping you get subscribers on your email. There's all these little things that we can fulfill around your marketing mix, but then Google really amplifies everything. So I definitely agree, and YouTube specifically has been a great platform for us to help get brand awareness across these different brands that we work with.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like Google has products all across the marketing funnel that really help brands and businesses, and some companies do a good job of utilizing them, some don't. And part of that might be just kind of education on how these products can be helpful. You know, you mentioned, you know, YouTube and search. You know, our display network reaches 95% of internet users across the web. So, you know, obviously search is very valuable for Google, but you know, when people are browsing the internet, not necessarily on search, you know, you also have an ability if you're a brand to reach those people.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's very underutilized for brands as well. And I think, you know, you have a viewpoint where it's like, okay, we have all these different Google products that can help amplify all these different areas of the business.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of brands don't necessarily have that.
Yeah.
You know? And that's why they really need to work with guys like you, guys like me, where we can really kind of help them understand and educate, like, where can these products really help?
Yeah.
Right. Some brands just think, oh, Google, it's just search, right? It's not just search.
Exactly.
It's YouTube display. It's Gmail. It's Maps. You know, it's the Play Store. It's Android. It's Chrome. You know, these are all products that have over 1 billion users. And Google's so much more than search. So I think, you know, it's really exciting to think about it. And what excites me is that what I see is that when brands really invest and really believe in Google, they really, really grow.
Yep.
Right? So, you know, when they put more marketing dollars behind Google products,
we see
it
that
really
all the time.
works.
Yeah.
You know, like they really grow. And I think for you guys, like you mentioned, I think a lot of your Google clients, they often stay on Google for longer. They stay with you guys for longer because it works. It's not a facade. It's something that you put marketing dollars in, and we're going to help grow your brand.
Yeah, that's really fun, and I appreciate taking time. One of the things I want to just ask before we wrap this up is, of all the Google platforms ad units, where do you think is the most undervalued? Where do you think that like people, let's just paint the picture for a direct consumer brand, selling your product online, only online, where do you think that there's a place where people could discover better return on their ad spend or better brand awareness for lower cost?
I think that's a great question. I think, some of the complication with the question is that we're getting to, immediate return on ad spend when sometimes it's more difficult to measure.
Yeah.
Right. So, search will always be a super valuable marketing tool. So even though search is something that's been around for a long time, a lot of brands put a lot of dollars behind it. Sometimes it's not necessarily thought about that as much as it should in terms of direct consumer brands. So I think that's certainly one thing, but I think YouTube we've obviously mentioned a few different times. Right. It's the second most trafficked website in the US and the world. Right. So 81% of traffic I think of YouTube is actually outside the US or something around that.
Wow.
So it's a global platform, and certainly as companies expand, they might want to think about international side of things too. So YouTube is a product where not only can you connect with consumers in a way that's engaging through video, combining strategies with influences that really connect with advertisers, but if they want to expand, to other areas in the US or internationally, it's a way to get their brand out there, and it interacts with other channels too. We know that when companies invest more in YouTube, that the volume of searches for their brand goes up, right? So, it might not be a direct return on ad spend for if they're just only looking at what's my return in the next day from watching a video, right? But the long-term impact is huge, and what we see is it affects not just the volume of searches but the cost per acquisition on search as well.
Exactly.
So I think these are two platforms that people know about, but they're still I think undervalued. Because they're so powerful and so useful, and like I mentioned before, Maps is the other one that I think is really
going to be the future.
It's definitely going to help bridge that gap between online and offline.
I always recommend YouTube. Almost always recommend YouTube because it's just lower impression costs. We also have that new ad type where you can do lead gen, build your email list, educate them through there because you don't want to interrupt them. Sorry to interrupt there. I think the other thing that I want to mention about YouTube too is that it can be a really good extension for a TV investment as well. Right? So a lot of companies, they might think about reach and frequency. It's one of their key goals. How can we reach the most amount of people in our targeted areas for the least amount of dollars? They might be thinking about things like cost per 1,000 impressions. Right. So we work with brands to help them understand. Well, if you maybe shifted some of your media mix where you have a percentage of TV spend on YouTube as well, we think we can increase your incremental reach by say 50% or something. Right. So sometimes or oftentimes TV skews to an older demographic. Well, things like YouTube skew to a younger demographic. So you might have companies who are really trying to go after the millennial generation, knowing that if we get them as a customer now, their lifetime value is probably greater. Right. So this is a platform where you can really go after people that maybe you can't necessarily reach in other media platforms. It's a good point, man. Well, thank you so much for coming in. Excited to have you.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you on Tuesday as usual. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. I'll be talking to you very soon. Thanks for joining Live from the Nest.
Thank you.